Poughkeepsie. Copies of it are available on the table, bar without booze, back there. So, I can tell you a little story. This is 18 Reed Place. Marie Rowe lived in this house. Now, Marie and Herman Rowe were married in 1939, just before World War II. He served in the Navy, and when he came back, they bought a house here. They raised their kids here. He joined the local 55 Painters Union, eventually became its president. Now, Herman Rowe passed away, and Marie Rowe was suffering from dementia. And at some point in 2011, she neglected to pay the taxes. Her family didn't know, and what ended up happening is the lien was put on the house, and by the time the family found out about it, the deed to the property had been transferred to the company that had purchased the tax lien, and Marie Rowe was evicted, as was her grandson, who lived in the apartment upstairs. The total debt that Marie Rowe owed on this property was $4,824. The company that purchased the tax lien then turned around and sold the property to Vassar Hospital for $115,000. Oh wow, that looks terrible. Wow. Okay, since we already got sort of a flow chart of how the tax lien system worked here, I'd just like to highlight a unique sort of, or nearly unique anyway, feature of the City of Poughkeepsie tax lien system. And this is that in other municipalities that have tax lien sales and auctions in New York State, at the end of the redemption period, the purchaser of the tax lien is required to petition for foreclosure, which means that instead of the city petitioning for foreclosure, the private investor who purchased the lien petitions for foreclosure, and that adjudicated process still takes place. In the City of Poughkeepsie, at the end of the redemption period, the city transfers the deed to the purchaser of the tax lien, which is why Marie Rowe never got a summons to come to court, and the notification process of that left it so that her children didn't even know about it until after the property was lost. So this is basically a copy or a different version of that chart that you saw before, but it's that private investors are very good at assessing risk. And if the tax lien purchase is an investment, then the private purchasers of the lien assess their risks very effectively. So this just goes down and shows that of 336 tax liens in 2015, 215 were sold at auction, 121 were retained by the city, which is what happens when they don't sell. 92.6% of the interest on the ones that were bought privately was paid off, versus 57.9% of the city ones. Now, there's an opportunity cost inherent in the system, and the opportunity cost is that of those 92% of the liens which are paid off plus the interest, that's money that's going into private investors' hands rather than the City of Poughkeepsie's hands. So if the City of Poughkeepsie had the lien on the properties, that $250,000 would be revenue for the city. There's also a baseline loss associated with the system of $374,006, representing an 11.678% systemic loss to the tax lien system. It's an ineffective or inefficient way of collecting delinquent taxes, particularly with the taxes that will be paid back. So who does this impact the most? Wow, okay, so this is a little warped, but this is the City of Poughkeepsie. The red dots represent properties that were transferred. It went through the entire process, and the deeds were transferred to the purchaser of the liens over a period of 2007 to 2017. Now, as you can see, if you're familiar with the city, I had color-coded it to minority-majority census blocks and white-majority census blocks, which you can probably see if you have a copy of the report anywhere near you. But something to the tune of 76% of the liens or the deeds that are transferred through the system are transferred in minority-majority census blocks. Now, if you look down here, this is roughly the 4th ward. The 4th ward doesn't have a disproportionately lower number of tax liens sold from there. In fact, if you were to just evenly distribute the tax liens across the city, the Fourth Ward would have its share. But as you can see, those tax liens get paid off. Those are the type of liens that investors are buying because it's pretty sure money. Generally, it's a tax flow issue or an oversight from the owner and not significant financial stress. So this just shows the census blocks. So 35% of the census blocks in the city of Poughkeepsie are minority majority, and 76% of the deeds transferred through the system in a 10-year period were in those census blocks. 80% of the properties that are transferred in through the system are zoned residential, and less than 1% are industrial, and about 16% are commercial properties. So this shows the sort of racial disparity of the impacts of that anyhow. This is also correlated to poverty. So this is coded to census concentration of poverty. The dark red areas are the higher levels of poverty in census blocks, and as you can see, the properties that are transferred through the system fall within those areas. So the average age of a person who lost their home to this system, these are the owner-occupied properties that was transferred. The average age was 60 years old, and 26% of the people that lost properties through this transfer were over the age of 70. Which, I mean, it makes sense that these are going to skew older because if you purchase a house, generally the taxes are bundled into your mortgage, right? So if you're still paying your mortgage, then generally your tax payments are going through with that. The properties that are lost, residential properties that are lost through the system, tend to be people who have owed their house free and clear. They've paid off their mortgages and are now responsible for simply making the tax payments. So it makes sense that it skews towards older, but that also means it skews towards more infirm. So of the deeds transferred each year, there's great variation into the sort of percentage that are owner-occupied versus the total number of deeds. In 2014, there were more deeds transferred than any time in this period by a fairly large margin. I'm not sure why that is. It may be lingering from the economic downturn. 2014 would be, what, 2012, 2011 taxes? 2011 taxes. Whoa. Okay, so I wanted to talk about three sort of potential solutions, and these are probably not the only solutions that we had set forth in the paper that we wrote. The first one is that the city of Poughkeepsie being the guarantor of the liens is not a given. That's something that the city of Poughkeepsie has the opportunity to do as a city in New York State, and through home rule can say, we want to be the guarantor of the taxes, which means when they collect the tax money, they then go to the county because they collect the county taxes and the school district taxes. They make the county whole, they make the school district whole, and then they hold the warrants, which then turn into the liens, and then they collect the money. The cities tend to do this because when it came into practice, it was late 1800s, and the cities were by far the most financially secure local governments. And also they do this because by being able to pursue the debt, you can then pursue the interest on said debt. So one option would be to no longer guarantee the warrants, which means that the city of Poughkeepsie would collect the taxes, bring the taxes to the county, give the receipts, and the county would then cut the city a check for the remainder of its taxes. Effectively, this would have no cash flow issues because the city would be made whole on the totality of its levy each year. The issue with that is that the city then loses control over what happens to those properties through a foreclosure process. It also precludes the city locally from being able to land bank in any way, shape, or form. So it's basically the city washing its hands of it, but instead of washing its hands of it and handing it over to private investors, it's washing the hands of it and turning it over to the county, who then utilizes the interim process. The second option that we put forward is to modify the tax lien system as it exists, but to try and make it better. and this has been something that's been kicked around and being proposed by the Mayor's Anti-Blight Task Force. Now, this offers some advantages in that you can then require tax lien purchasers to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise, such as the suggestion that tax lien purchasers clean up vacant lots while they hold the lien. These are things that can be settled contractually. The issues, okay, first off, this is untested, so it could work great or it could not work so great, and I can't tell you which way that would go because there's no way to actually evaluate a system like that. I think that it would be better than what we have now. It certainly would be better what we have now if it requires foreclosure at the end, so that there is an adjudicated process and there is a proper transfer of the deed. I don't know if it's optimal or not, but any change to the system that we have now would be a good one. The third option that was put forth is the one where the city adopts the in rem process in state law. This allows the city to collect the interest on the debts, and allows the city to maintain control of land use through the process. It has one major problem, and this is the reason why historically this has not happened. In the 1998, our current comprehensive plan states that the tax lien system should move to the in rem process in state law to provide clean title and to help with economic development. That's going back to 1998. In 1977, the city of Poughkeepsie passed a law adopting the in rem process, which it then backed out of because that kind of contradicted the city charter at the time. Now, the law that is used right now in the city of Poughkeepsie to conduct a tax lien sale never once mentions selling tax liens. It is a 164 years old law that was included in the original 1854 charter. And what it states is that the lien is issued, and at the end of the redemption period, the city should auction the property off and sell it to the highest bidder. What's being done right now is being done under the assumption that a tax lien sale is the rough equivalent of an auction. It disregards the timing of the thing because the tax lien sale happens before the end of the redemption period and the auction would happen afterwards. Regardless of what the city of Poughkeepsie chooses to do going forward, I think that it is absolutely essential that the laws be changed to reflect what the actual practice is. Now, the large problem that's presented with moving to the in rem process is that it sucks a whole lot of the budget. It takes $1.5 to $2.5 million straight out of the budget, which is a tax increase that the people of the city of Poughkeepsie are not going to be able to stomach. There are ways, however, to be able to use short-term financing, tax anticipation notes, to be able to fill that gap in the interim years. So what you end up doing is you issue a short-term loan. Basically, you take out a short-term loan at extremely low interest rates. These don't even approach the interest rates that bond rates are. And you finance the gap that would occur within your budget using those. They get paid back, and this is only done in a short term because after about a 5-year period, you're going to start to see regular revenue at regular intervals from the tax lien, through the in rem process, through the foreclosure process. So there are ways out of where we are right now, but from everything that I've researched, something has to change.